Who are they? The Lost Boys? They're the children who fall out of their perambulators when the nurse is looking the other way. Oh, what fun it must be. Yes, but we are rather lonely. You see, we have no female companionship. Girls, you know, are much too clever to fall out of their prams.
I think we actually have to explicitly say what OnlyFans is. It occurred to me that we've invoked it a few times without people necessarily knowing what it is.
Take it away.
OnlyFans is a website where mostly young women take off their clothes in videos or pictures for men who pay for that pleasure, and usually on a subscription basis. And it distinguishes itself from regular porn in that most of the young women doing this are not professionals, and many of them are in fact college students. Many of them are relatively affluent. They're all they're not doing it out of desperation. They're doing it because there's a lot of money to be made in this. And it seems as if overnight it's been normalized to a frightening degree. Cue this article. This interview in Business Insider, I think.
Day in the life.
I'm pretty confident it was Business Insider.
I can't pronounce her name. Ayala? Business Insider, yeah.
Yeah. And she's top 5% on OnlyFans because, again, they quantify how much money you're earning and then give you a percentile ranking.
Yeah. She makes $100,000 US a month.
Mm-hmm.
With 3,200 subscribers. And she's in the top.
With 3,200 subscribers?
Which isn't that many, right?
No.
And is the top 0.04% of creators in terms of monthly revenue generated.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So this article walks us through a day in her life, which is pretty lackadaisical. It's kind of enviable in a way.
It's mostly just taking photos of yourself and then promoting yourself on social media.
I may or may not eat something at 12:30. I also run a Telegram group that currently has 83 other OnlyFans girls in it, where we exchange tips and tricks. We share graphs and spreadsheets with each other to see how we've been operating. I mean, that's pretty entrepreneurial.
Oh,
She also has calculators that she's built to do things like predict your income based on how many subscriptions you're getting per day. Yeah. It's funny pivoting from victims' voices to OnlyFans because you use the word we've normalized this OnlyFans. I mean, it was started by two Wall Street guys, right?
A Wall Street investment banker and his son, I believe.
Right, which were of course, and they're probably not. They're probably not our ideal men.
Yes.
In terms of gallantry, but I'm
going to interject if I may.
You may.
I had a flashback just now of speaking with one of our aunts.
Aunts.
Too much British influence. And she was telling me a story about her own mother, my grandmother, being outraged at the thought of a 16-year-old girl being on birth control, and telling my grandmother telling my aunt 16 is too too young to be having sex. She's too young to be on the birth control pill. And my aunt shared this story with me in the spirit of look how stuffy and conservative and out of touch she was, because obviously 16-year-olds are going to have sex, and it's better to be safe than sorry. And in my head, I was thinking that is so quaint that you think that's because a better representation of what's happening in the culture in 2020 is my 18-year-old daughter just signed up for OnlyFans and is selling naked pictures of herself to adult men all over the world. That's a I'm not saying that it's as common. It's obviously not, but it's getting there. It's getting there.
But it's so
Bella Thorne, celebrity, just did an OnlyFans stunt, I suppose.
Who apparently really needed to revive her career. And in the last episode of Red Scare I listened to, I think it was the Only Source episode, they suggested that she also has some PTSD or BPD over like childhood sexual trauma or something like that. Not that she's like so kind of suggests she's an outlier and like would do anything extreme to revive her career, but she was an actress. She didn't.
But it might be extreme for an actress or someone with celebrity already to do something like this. But I'm saying it's becoming far less extreme. Like I sent you a text message that a friend sent me saying that like I think he said like almost a third of his most recent Tinder matches confessed to him that they had OnlyFans accounts, and they wanted him to know in advance because obviously not every guy would be comfortable with, dating someone who was a sex worker. And it's like, okay, if it's
okay, but so that's what's interesting too. Like, and I just actually a guy friend of mine also just turned down a date with someone who has an OnlyFans account because he didn't feel comfortable.
Are these all the same women, or is it just really like that many now?
But when he said he didn't feel comfortable, she accused him of being like a patriarchal gatekeeper of women's sexuality. But anyway, of course.
Oh yes, my body, my choice.
Double-edged sword of an insane double.
But that also
everything.
I'm sorry, but like I have to say this. You want contradictory things if simultaneously you want to be able to sell your body to the world and you want to get mad at men for not being romantically, emotionally intimate after they've been sexually intimate with you. Like either we're going to treat them as distinguishable or not.
So, well, here's my question. Does OnlyFans... Are OnlyFans creators sex workers if they're not having sex?
Some of them are having sex.
How do we know this?
Well, it's known.
Okay, but they're not necessarily having sex through the platform, right? It's like if they're doing that, it's outside of the realm of OnlyFans.
No, you can share videos of you having sex. It's a sex worker's website. It's not a.
You can share videos of you having sex with men.
Yes.
Oh, so you can.
It's not just PG-13.
Take your top off and talk sweet things to me.
No.
It's not the girlfriend experience only.
And even if it began as that, which maybe it did, like there's money to be made here. And presumably like the more you show and the more you do.
So it's
a terrible logic.
It's porn on request.
Yeah. With the distinction that in the past, like porn itself has become far more normalized, but this is literal college students. Like this is what I like. They mentioned this in the Red Scare episode too, but seeking arrangement is also a thing. Like sugar babying has become, and sugar daddying has become normalized. And even though I guess prostitution is technically illegal, at least in most states and provinces, there's still a website, and I think there's even an app, and you can make a profile and arrange these dates and.
Right. And there's nothing in our culture right now that destigmatizes that, because what we're demanding is that sex work be normalized. And the point that Anna and Dasha make in Red Scare is that it should be stigmatized. It should be a taboo. Like sex work historically and really not so far back in recent history is for women who really have no other option and or arrived in those circumstances via sex trafficking in horrific conditions and are having sex with men that ultimately they find disgusting and are paying them to perform these acts. And I'm not saying that like there's no argument to be made that there's no alternative for these women, but like when we're talking about OnlyFans creators, like these are, like you said, college educated, liberal, progressive, feminists, like arguably come from good family women. A lot of them, which is like, I mean, I was listening to another podcast the other day, and it was a mom of 3, and she's just started an OnlyFans during the pandemic, and she's making $40,000 a month now.
The mother,
single mother of 3.
Well, the money's good.
No,
but like, can we talk about that for a second? $40,000 a month.
Yeah, the money is good, but like,
no, that's not just good money.
It's insane money. It's why bother doing anything else?
More than most surgeons, more than most lawyers, why go to school?
Well, it's money that also has a time limit. I don't know how hot that young mom is, but like, let's be honest.
$40,000 a month?
Yeah, but arguably, if you're in the top 0.04% of creators, you're
for sure,
you're
most
young,
people make
you're hot.
Nothing close to that.
Yeah, but you're young, you're hot, you're attractive, and you're capitalizing on all those things for as long as you can. But that has a deadline.
I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying if you're making $40,000 to $100,000 a month,
why do anything else?
Even if you did it for a few years, you're better off financially than people who work 9-to-5 jobs that they hate for 20 or 30 years.
Right. But I don't want to lose track of like the point that I think Redskare brought up that I think is essential to reinforce, which is there is a difference between women who are forced into sex work and women who create on OnlyFans. And so
I think what OnlyFans revealed is that women don't need to be forced into it. And I actually think like the history of sex work would show it wasn't only, I mean, there've always been desperate women who've done it,
But there are women who are sex trafficked at a young age into sex work.
Yes, of course. There's always been that. But I think there's also always been women who figured out that they could make a lot of money with their beauty. That's not new either. We've just
No, but we've all like we've upgraded that notion into like what used to be making like monetizing your beauty is now monetizing your sex life.
No, I'm saying
I'm talking about for women, for liberal arts educated feminists. Like if you have an OnlyFans account and you come from a middle to upper middle class background, like there's something. You were given every opportunity to become whatever you wanted, and you're choosing this because you're making a lot of money, and that makes sense. You don't have to justify that decision. It's a ton of money. But that's a far cry from a 16-year-old who was forced into sex trafficking.
I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
I just don't think
who's not making anywhere near as much, probably.
Yes, but I'm denying that OnlyFans invented the woman who doesn't need to do it and does it.
Right.
I think that's been around for a very long time too. There's just been much greater stigma against it. That's my point.
So
can I give this just occurred to me that this predates OnlyFans. There was a woman who did an interview with Piers Morgan in I think 2014 or 2013. And she was billed as the Duke University porn star. She was a freshman at Duke, which is like considered one of the better universities in America. Her parents were either doctors or lawyers. Like she came from an upper middle class background and she was at an elite university. And she was taking a gender studies minor. She's doing gender studies and law. And she went on Piers Morgan to argue that she was, in doing porn, she was owning her sexuality and that this was empowering. And that's a precursor. It's so funny. Like I remember that was shocking in 2014. It was like, oh, a Duke student, really? But that was just like the opening of the floodgates because not all of the women on OnlyFans are going to have anything like her publicity. They're not going to go on, one of the most famous talk shows in the world and take an interview. But they have taken this line that's like, my body and my sexuality are my own, and I choose to sell them if I want to. And there might even be something empowering in it. Plus, I'm making money.
But it's. I also wonder if again, like if it relates back to you can't have it then both ways. You can't perform sexual acts with men on camera for a predominantly male audience and monetize that and then expect to then enter into the dating world with a man and have him not have any kind of reaction to that. Like, and I don't also then think that you can call yourself, I don't know how much that upholds the tenets of feminism for that person at that point. Like, there's something incredibly contradictory and entirely hypocritical about having an OnlyFans account and then calling yourself progressive.
I'm suggesting...
No, I'm saying like...
I'm not sure there is. I think it's consistent with a lot of the dogma that they really believe.
But they're also making money off of the very demographic people that they claim to be the most powerful running the world, right? I'm
not saying there isn't a degree of hypocrisy in it. I'm just saying that the idea that they can sell their bodies and that that's somehow empowering comes directly from the ideology, from what they subscribe to.
But you do agree that there's an inherent hypocrisy in that. Who has the power in this dynamic here?
Oh, yes. I think if you're making $100,000 a month on OnlyFans, you're a pretty powerful person.
Right. And
you found a way to leverage your beauty in a...
But your audience is your perceived patriarchy, right? Like, that's what's so fucked up about it.
Well, I think some of them even might get a kick from that. It's like, I'm sticking it to men. No, I'm serious.
Probably. I think you're right. I'm just laughing at that. But I really appreciated the point of that Anna made in OnlySource, which is, and I've been thinking a lot about it. It's lazy work. Like, you're not using your education. You're not using your mind. Yes, you're being arguably resourceful and entrepreneurial to a certain extent, but actually, like, you're monetizing the most basic.
It's not much,
primitive.
It's not much different than running your own Instagram account.
It really isn't.
Which a billion people do.
Which a billion people do. And there's something, I don't know, there's something that should, like, again, like, there should be some kind of pushback. Like, there's something that deserves to be ridiculed about this and minimized. And if it can't be stigmatized, it should be ridiculed. Like, you're contributing nothing to society, nothing. And you're reaping the benefits off of ultimately what is, like, male loneliness and a desperate need for attention.
Yeah, I'm wondering to what degree. I sent you an article today. It's the porn star Riley Reid talking, I think, in an Instagram story. She's answering fan questions. She's, I believe, the highest paid porn star in the world. And
what's her name? Sorry?
Riley Reid.
Oh, Riley Reid, yeah.
And she's answering questions on her Instagram, like, live, I guess. I don't know how Instagram works. She's answering questions live. And she starts to break down and cry at a couple of the questions. And the ones that make her cry are, has your career, like, impacted your relationships? And she's very candid. And she says, yes, I haven't been able to keep a relationship going. Every time I start a relationship with a man, at a certain point, they give me an ultimatum. It's like, you have to choose me or your career. Like, I can't keep being with you while you're doing this. And she says, and every time I chose my career. And she says, I'm worried that I made the wrong decision. And that's for her to decide, I suppose. But I'm not surprised in the least that any man who loves her would come to the point where they're saying, listen, I can't keep seeing you if this is how you generally treat your sexuality. Even if she is capable of separating her sexual intimacy from her emotional intimacy, I don't know that anyone who loves you, genuinely loves you, would want you to do that. Like, they would want it's described as being, like, possessive. I think that's how you said your friend who turned down the girl who had an OnlyFans account. Like, you're patriarchal, but really, like,
you're a gatekeeper.
You're a gatekeeper, yeah. But you're supposed to be possessive of the people you love. Like, and there's a bad way to be possessive. There's a controlling way, but at the same time.
Well, does she speak to the reasons for which she continued?
I haven't watched them. I just sent you the article.
Because that would be interesting to know as well.
Yeah. But I mean, she's an extreme example of separating sexuality from emotional intimacy because she literally does it for a job.
Well, she also has to for her job.
Yes, exactly.
Otherwise, you can't survive that job.
Right. But my point is, on a smaller scale, that's what men and women are attempting to do culturally. They're trying to separate sexuality from intimacy.
Absolutely.
And I think on a smaller scale, the results are equally disastrous.
Well, and then
often
bringing it back to full circle, hence victims' voices.
Yeah, that's a very glaring manifestation of it.
And it's overwhelming.
And probably an illegal one, and one that you, as you said, resulted in a lawsuit.
Several lawsuits. But also a very twisted way of going about communicating what it is you actually want out of both your sex life and your relationships.
Right. But,
like, that's how dysfunctional we've become. We're putting it out there on every single platform except for, and robbing ourselves of every opportunity to deal with this in our personal lives.
Right.
Like, what kind of personal life does someone like Ayala have?
Okay, but those are outliers by any reasonable definition. Mm-hmm. And I'm suggesting that most people who will never sell their bodies or sell their sexualities or prostitute themselves or be sex workers, nonetheless are confronted with the option in our culture just to attempt to separate sexuality and intimacy. And I'm suggesting that bargain needs to be re-examined for everyone. That these extreme examples show up deficiencies in the reasoning that says, oh, we can do it, no problem.
I think it's also interesting. I also wonder, of the 3,200 subscribers to Ayala's OnlyFans account, how many of them are subscribing because they're looking for intimacy?
Yeah, I imagine most. Actually, I think I didn't read the full article, but I'm pretty sure she says, or she spoke about it in the aftermath of that article, that was her experience in sex work, which was that men really wanted emotional intimacy as well, which isn't something you can authentically buy. Like, you can delude yourself that you're buying it.
Well, right.
But it's not something you can't purchase someone's affection. Affection doesn't work that way.
But we're pouring money into it anyway and treating it like a product.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't surprising in the least, but it's just, I think what's important to continue to emphasize as part of what we're trying to shed light on is everyone was fixated in the first few days of this article surfacing over how much money she makes, over the industry of OnlyFans as the normalized version of sex work, and an acceptable one in progressive terms, I guess. And not at all on the market it's targeting and who is subscribing and the nature of it. And a handful of voices on Twitter pointed to this. But there is something entirely devastating that she's able to make this much money off of a male audience who is clearly not getting any kind of intimacy or sex elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Male loneliness, not a finite commodity in 2020. But
But that's what no one, like, it's not a question of not even focusing on it, that they're not even it's not even on anyone's radar. Like, there's no attempt to articulate what that is. And other than dismissing it as oh, men are gross, of course they're going to watch naked women. Like, that's the simplified version of that. And maybe it is sticking to the patriarchy to be able to monetize your sexuality and make money off of them. But the power dynamics are incredibly imbalanced, and that's undeniable. This is an incredible amount of power. On top of its monetary influence. And then to turn around and say that this is progressive and the ultimate manifestation of feminism is it's I mean, there's no reason or rhyme in any of this. None of this makes sense to me.
I think I join you in condemning it, and I just disagree that it doesn't make sense or that there isn't reason behind it.
No, there is a reason behind it, but I'm talking about the logic, but
it breaks down at the human level.
No, but the female, or more specifically, the feminist rationale to how this is an example of progressive female empowerment and owning our sexuality and sex positivity, all those hashtagable labels that we assign to someone like an Ayala, who's an OnlyFans creator. That's delusional to me. There's nothing impressive about her work. She's contributed nothing to society. She's profiting off of the ultimate capitalist economy right now. And it's the oldest form of female work in the Western world. Nothing about this speaks progressive to me. And the fact that we keep using that word is really irritating me.
According to the ideology of feminism, this is supposed to be something women can do. One of my favorite literary critics, Lionel Trilling, wrote a very beautiful book in the aftermath of the Second World War called Politics in the Liberal Imagination, in which he said it was the job of literature to push back against ideologies, because ideologies by their very nature are limiting to what human beings are. They have a specific vision of a human being. And literature kind of shows how contradictory humans are and messy. And I think that's these are what we're touching on are painful examples of where ideology is insufficient to deal with the messy human element that it's supposed to represent.
And also the failure of ideological justifications in upholding any kind of morality or value system.
Well, they have to have a value system unto themselves.
Right. But I mean, most of us, maybe I can't say that actually. What am I saying? Most of us, there's something incredibly alienating and cold and tragic and pessimistic about OnlyFans and the women on it.
And yet it so perfectly exemplifies where we are as a culture in 2020.
But that's what I mean. But I also think in an ideologically driven culture, it's very difficult to get at what actually resonates on the level of humanity and community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so far removed from what we actually want for ourselves in our individual lives, i.e., meaningful relationships, intimacy, community.
Well, I'll ask you a dangerous question. We spoke about Leonardo DiCaprio as living the male dream. And I suggested to you that a whole lot of men, given the option, would choose to live Leo's life and never settle down. And they'd be happy with that, or like think they would be happy with that. How many women would be happy with the Ayala $100,000 a month OnlyFans life?
That's a very great question.
Are those people perhaps mirror images of each other? Does everyone need intimacy and love, or could a subset of people really be happy with the sexual side or the monetary side?
Is Ayala happy?
I have no idea.
I mean, is Leonardo DiCaprio happy? We don't know, but
I doubt he's miserable. I doubt Ayala. I mean, maybe she is, but
this is the thing, right? And if capitalism has won out in how we navigate not only our how we work, but also apparently how we protest, because the monetization of all of these protests in the United States right now is almost amusing. How brands are taking on these initiatives and profiting off them, and how that's taking away from any serious discussion on the actual root causes of these problems going on in the United States, socially and racially. Is OnlyFans like, are we finally saying to ourselves that capitalism has won? America is business. There's no divorcing it from it.
And we are commodities and consumers, both.
Yes. The end of culture.
Maybe that's what religion is. It's the insistence that we're more than that. The faith.
Well, that's what art, literature, movies.
Art and literature too. And philosophy maybe.
And philosophy. But it's funny, like even this image of her, like this portrait, like on Twitter of Ayala.
Uh-huh.
Like you almost look like an AI robot. There's something
user generated.
Yeah, perfectly curated, beyond an Instagram influencer. It's like, and not to get, into art history, but like Mona Lisa-esque almost. Like, is she smiling? Is she not? Is she happy? Is she not? I don't know. Does anyone care? Does it matter?